The journey was finally nearing the end, or so they thought. Like many before them, there were not many on that bus that were happy. There were always so few people who were happy when the end of a bus ride came. Being cramped with a bunch of other people, many of whom were sweaty or in other stages of dirtiness and disrepair, while the bus made stop after stop did very little to improve anyone's mood. And here it was, nearly Thanksgiving, and this bus was packed full, and Chicago was just ahead. It was not approaching fast enough. Charlie tried to stretch. He elbowed the sleeping man next to him, who then gave out with a grunt and shifted in his sleep. He cringed and folded his arms back around his midsection. He sighed and turned to his left, staring out the window. The endless empty fields that were Illinois seemed to stretch out infinitely all around him. The afternoon sun was waning, not that there was much to see anyway. The orange ball in the sky could barely cut any bit of light through the clouds. It was dead gray fields that met dead gray sky somewhere on the horizon. Charlie looked around to see the rest of the people on the bus. There were men and women and families all around him. A baby made noises somewhere near the back. Earlier, the baby had been screaming its head off until something had silenced it. Also near the back were a group of men that, at least to Charlie's mind, might have been parolees just let out of prison. He was only guessing by their dress and some of the conversations he had overheard before the bus had filled. He cursed his luck. His car had broken down just last week, and he hadn't had enough money to get it fixed. He did not want to spend the holiday alone in his apartment back in St. Louis. He wanted to get home and see his family. Since money was tight, flying was out of the question, and even the train was a bit too pricey. No, he ended up in downtown St. Louis fearing for his life in the grungy bus station, and now was crammed onto this bus as it wound its way northward. He tried to keep smiling and being pleasant. He could almost feel Chicago just ahead of them in the growing gloom. Just a couple more hours, he told himself. He could make it. Maybe he could try sleeping again. He had never been good at sleeping on moving vehicles, however, and there was little room to get comfortable. He sighed again and tried to peer ahead of the bus. He craned his neck to see forward. He frowned. Up ahead, perhaps 10 miles or so, it was as if the world stopped. There was a white line across the road. The world seemed to turn white after that. Fog, he thought. It was fog. This was not abnormal. Lots of times, the ever-changing weather in the Midwest had caused there to be fog between St. Louis and Chicago. He had driven through it himself several times. Still, something about this was strange. It was as if a line had been drawn by a giant ruler across the road. He frowned again. It seemed like there were very few cars coming the opposite direction, headed south on the highway. "What the hell?" he whispered. Most of the people around him were listening to music. Some were sleeping. Some were chatting with each other quietly. The baby was cooing, and the mother speaking to it calmly. Someone else was looking at a tiny DVD player. Nothing was out of the ordinary. The bus kept moving forward. There were other cars and some trucks ahead of them as well, and as they got closer, Charlie saw them vanish into the fog. He frowned yet again. He did not see their taillights. They were just there one minute and then gone the next when they went into the fog. Suddenly, his stomach rolled. He was very certain, all at once, that he did not want to go into that fog. "Hey," he said. He had no idea who he was going to tell. The driver? Guy looked half asleep behind the wheel. "Hey." No one responded. The fog got closer. Now they were just a mile or so away. "Wait," Charlie said. He started to struggle against the seat in front of him. The sleeper next to him shifted again. "Wait!" Charlie said again. It was no good. The fog was closer. Too close now. Charlie reached up and grabbed at the ceiling. He grabbed the top of the seat in front of him and pulled himself into a standing position. "Wait!" he screamed. Just as he said that syllable, the bus roared through the fog. At that moment, the world seemed to tip beneath them all, and the bus fell. Screams erupted from all around. It was as if the bus had fallen off the edge of the earth. Then, just as suddenly, with the fog blotting out everything around them, the bus crashed to the ground. Charlie was flung forward and then back into the seat. All around him, people were screaming and cursing. When Charlie looked out the window, he saw only fog, but he also saw shadows moving in that fog. "Oh, hell," he said. "So much for Thanksgiving," was his next thought. Thanks for listening to When the Night Comes Out Jump Scares. Be sure to like, share, and review. You can binge our first 2 seasons of full-length stories now. Until next time, try to stay safe when the night comes out. Hey guys, we appreciate your continued support, but we also would like to create a community around When the Night Comes Out. A community of horror fiction fans who support us so we can bring you even more stories, more scares, expand what we offer, and maybe even podcast merch. So be sure to visit patreon.com/whenthenightcomesout and become a supporter. Every amount helps. We'll see you next time, when the night comes out.